Excellencies, distinguished delegates, the General Assembly will continue its consideration of Agenda Item 14, entitled The Culture of Peace. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Malaysia.
Thank you, Mr. President. Malaysia aligns itself with the statement delivered by Brunei Darussalam on behalf of ASEAN. In addition, allow me to deliver remarks in our national capacity. At the outset, my delegation would like to thank the Secretary General for his report on the promotion of interreligious and intercultural dialogue, understanding and cooperation for peace as contained in document A/78/591. Malaysia lauds the work of the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations, as well as other UN entities and initiatives in pursuit of true understanding and tolerance that bridge divides and overcome prejudices through intercultural and interreligious dialogue. It is in full support of these undertakings that Malaysia co-sponsored the draft resolution on the follow-up to the Declaration and Programme of Action on a Culture of Peace and the various resolutions, as well as UN-led initiatives on this issue. Mr. President, as the year marks the 25th anniversary of the adoption of the Declaration and Programme of Action on Culture of Peace by the General Assembly, Malaysia reaffirms that the 8 areas of action outlined in the Declaration and Programme of Action on the Culture of Peace remain relevant and have become increasingly crucial in the current global landscape. The discussion today takes place at a critical juncture against a backdrop of heightened tensions. Nuclear war rhetoric is at an all-time high, while various parts of the world are experiencing conflicts and unrest. The situation is further compounded by acts of terror as well as hate crimes, emanating from racial and religious discrimination and xenophobia. The cultivation of a culture of peace has thus become more important than ever. Malaysia believes that in our continuous efforts to promote a culture of peace, dialogue and exchanges of ideas are some of the best ways to instill understanding and acceptance between different groups, faiths, and religions. We need to share ideas and knowledge, as well as to discover common grounds that could bring the disparate groups closer. It is our strong belief that the promotion of culture of peace should be an inclusive process. Therefore, positive interactions among peoples of diverse cultures and values will help to achieve the aim of preserving and promoting global peace and stability, which are necessary prerequisite for the promotion of sustainable economic and social development. As a multicultural, multiracial, and multireligious country, Malaysia continues to take an affirmative and positive approach to peace in line with the Malaysia Madani concept espoused by the Prime Minister of Malaysia. The concept emphasizes 6 core values, namely sustainability, compassion, respect, innovation, prosperity, and trust. Mr. President, to conclude, the obstacles preventing a culture of peace from taking root are many, but they are not insurmountable. In this regard, Malaysia calls on all to share the collective responsibility to overcome all related challenges towards maintaining global peace and stability in pursuit of our shared goals to achieve more inclusive and prosperous society. I thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Malaysia for her statement. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Ecuador.
Gracias, señor presidente. El Ecuador agradece el informe presentado por el secretario general sobre el tema Cultura de Paz que consta en el documento A/78/591, intitulado Seguimiento de la Declaración y el Programa de Acción sobre una Cultura de Paz. En esta ocasión, reitero la preocupación del Ecuador por la persistencia y proliferación de la violencia y los conflictos en diversas partes del mundo. Es necesario eliminar todas las formas de discriminación e intolerancia, privilegiando la paz, que debe ser un proceso participativo, positivo y dinámico, lo que requiere de un espíritu de comprensión y cooperación mutua. El diálogo directo es y siempre será el mejor instrumento de prevención y resolución de conflictos. Por esto, es todavía crucial recordar esa idea vigente y central contenida en la Constitución de la Organización de las Naciones Unidas para la Educación, la Ciencia y la Cultura, que afirma que, abro comillas, puesto que las guerras nacen en la mente de los hombres, es en la mente de los hombres donde deben erigirse los baluartes de la paz, cierro comillas. Es necesario revitalizar nuestro compromiso para enfrentar los desafíos de la infodemia o pandemia de desinformación, al tiempo de recordar la necesidad crucial de tener acceso a información gratuita, confiable, factual, multilingüe, específica, precisa, clara y con base científica, y encontrar las herramientas suficientes para frenar la propagación de este destructivo virus. La Agenda 2030 para el Desarrollo Sostenible hace un énfasis significativo en la promoción de una cultura de paz. Necesitamos retomar el rumbo para lograr los objetivos del desarrollo sostenible mediante el diseño de estrategias equitativas y solidarias que permitan la construcción de sociedades resilientes y mejor preparadas para futuras crisis, lo que debe ser adecuadamente considerado en la Cumbre del Futuro de septiembre próximo. Quiero subrayar, distinguidos colegas, excelencias, que en la normativa del Ecuador está inmerso el concepto de la cultura de paz, pero sobre todo está en la conciencia de un pueblo pacífico que se ha visto amenazado por la extrema violencia del delito transnacional organizado, que cree tener el combustible para socavar nuestras instituciones democráticas y generar impunidad. No lo lograrán, pues el Ecuador es un país que se renueva a diario en su compromiso con la paz, el desarrollo y la democracia. Reitero nuestro compromiso para profundizar los esfuerzos tendientes a establecer una cultura global de paz, al tiempo que renuevo también el compromiso del Ecuador en apoyar su implementación en los niveles local, nacional, regional e internacional. Concluyo con un especial reconocimiento a la delegación de Bangladesh por su ya histórico liderazgo en este tema, incluyendo la presentación de la resolución que se apresta a adoptar esta Asamblea y que el Ecuador copatrocinará, más aún cuando en 2024 se cumplen 25 años desde que la Asamblea General comenzó la consideración de este importante tema. Muchas gracias por su atención.
I thank the distinguished representative of Ecuador for his statement. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Timor-Leste.
Thank you, Mr. President. We gather here today at a crucial moment in our human history, where the pursuit of peace and justice is more urgent than ever. As we face the challenges of conflict, inequality, environmental degradation, and the dwindling respect for international rule-based order, we must come together to advance a culture of peace and justice that embraces our shared humanity. We must recognize that peace, stability, and justice are not destinations, but journeys. They require constant effort, dedication, and collective action. We must cultivate empathy, understanding, and compassion to break down the barriers that divide us. We must prioritize education and cultural exchange to promote mutual understanding and respect. We must learn from each other's stories, traditions, and values to build bridges of understandings. We must address the root causes of conflict and inequality, including poverty, discrimination, and political oppression. We must work towards economic justice, social equality, and political freedom for all. We must harness the power of technology and innovation to promote peace and justice. We must use digital platforms to amplify marginalized voices, mobilize collective actions, and build inclusive communities. We must protect our planet and ensure a sustainable future for all. We must address climate change, preserve natural resources, and promote environmental justice. We must support and empower local peace builders and justice seekers who are working tirelessly to build peaceful and just communities. And we must hold leaders accountable for their actions and promote democratic values, human rights, and the rule of law. We must cultivate inner peace in mindfulness in our daily lives and recognize that peace begins within each of us. Mr. President, Timor-Leste has come a long way since our struggle for independence, and we have made significant strides in building a peaceful and harmonious society. We have learned that peace is not just the absence of conflict, but a conscious effort to understand and respect each other's differences. We have learned to embrace our diversity and celebrate our unique cultural heritage, to nourish the culture of peace. That is the reason why Timor-Leste has also co-sponsored this resolution, and thank you, Bangladesh, for initiating it. Our culture of peace is rooted in our traditional values and hospitality, forgiveness, and community. We have a saying in our vernacular language, Tetum, Nenek Maibe Bebek, slowly yet persistently, which reminds us that peace is a journey, not a destination. We have made significant progress in rebuilding our country, and we are proud of our achievements. But we know that peace is not just about physical reconstruction. It is about healing the wounds of the past and building trust among our people and with our neighbors. This can be seen through our successful reconciliation process and the reconciliation with our neighboring countries. In addition, we've also been working towards the strengthening of good relations with the countries in the region to promote regional peace and security. On a long-term basis, we are committed to promote a culture of peace through education, dialogue, and community engagement. We are working to empower our youth, support our vulnerable communities, and promote social cohesion. Let us walk together to the path of peace with patience, understanding, and compassion. Let us celebrate our differences and find strength in our diversity. In closing, Mr. President, advancing a culture of peace and justice requires a collective effort and a commitment to our shared humanity across the globe. Let us work together to build a world where everyone can thrive, where everyone can live in dignity and respect, and where everyone can enjoy peace and justice. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the distinguished representative of Timor-Leste for his statement. I now give the floor to the distinguished permanent representative of Saudi Arabia.
سيد الرئيس، يسعدني أن أتقدم إليكم بكل الشكر والتقدير على عقد هذه المناقشة وإتاحة الفرصة للدول الأعضاء لتجديد التزامهم بالتنفيذ الكامل والفعال لإعلان وبرنامج عمل الأمم المتحدة بشأن ثقافة السلام، والتي تحظى بأهمية خاصة هذا العام الذي يصادف الذكرى 25 لاعتماد الجمعية العامة القرار الذي تقدمه البعثة الدائمة لجمهورية بنغلاديش الشقيقة. السيد الرئيس، أيها السيدات والسادة، في الوقت الذي يواجه فيه العالم أزمات ونزاعات متعددة، فإننا نؤكد بأن ثقافة السلام تشكل جسراً حيوياً لتعزيز التواصل بين الشعوب والثقافات المتنوعة، وأن الجهود التي تبذلها الأمم المتحدة من أجل منع نشوب النزاعات وتسويتها بالوسائل السلمية تسهم إلى حد كبير في تعزيز ثقافة السلام والعمل المشترك. وفي هذا السياق أود التذكير بما يواجهه الشعب الفلسطيني الأعزل في قطاع غزة من اعتداءات شنيعة من قبل سلطات الاحتلال الإسرائيلي، الأمر الذي يحتم على المجتمع الدولي فرض ضرورة وقف الحرب في قطاع غزة وضمان حماية المدنيين وإيصال المساعدات الإنسانية إلى قطاع غزة ومنع التهجير. السيد الرئيس، إن برنامج عمل الأمم المتحدة بشأن ثقافة السلام يعزز المساهمة الهامة للشباب في الجهود الرامية لمكافحة الإرهاب ومنع التطرف وبناء السلام والأمن والتنمية المستدامة وحقوق الإنسان، كما أن إعلان منظمة الأمم المتحدة للتربية والعلوم والثقافة اليونسكو 21 من فبراير يوماً دولياً للغة الأم يساهم أيضاً في حماية وتعزيز حفظ التنوع اللغوي والثقافي وتعدد اللغات وإثراء ثقافة السلام والوئام الاجتماعي والحوار بين الحضارات والثقافات والتفاهم بينها. السيد الرئيس، لقد أطلقت المملكة العربية السعودية مشروع سلام للتواصل الحضاري الذي يقوم على مد جسور التعاون بين مختلف الثقافات والشعوب تحقيقاً لغايات إنسانية سامية، حيث يهدف المشروع إلى تجذير قيم التسامح والتفاهم وقبول الآخر وتعزيز سبل التعايش بين الشعوب. ومنذ تأسيسها لليوم بذلت بلادي جهوداً كبيرة لدعم الجهود المحلية والعالمية الرامية إلى تعزيز التواصل الحضاري مع الشعوب والدول. ومن هذا المنطلق جاء مشروع السلام للتواصل الحضاري متسقاً مع توجهات المملكة في رؤيتها 2030، إذ اطلع المشروع منذ انطلاقه في عام 2015 بأدوار محورية في مساندة الجهود القائمة في مجال التواصل الحضاري وبناء وتنمية القدرات الوطنية، مدفوعين بإيماننا العميق بأهمية توسيع نطاق جهود التواصل الحضاري للمملكة مع المجتمعات والشعوب المختلفة في الداخل والخارج، وتركيز الجهود نحو الريادة والتميز في دعم تلك الجهود بما يسهم في إرساء أسس التعايش والسلام والأمن العالمي وبما يدفعها نحو آفاق جديدة من التطور والازدهار. وفي الختام، إن المتغيرات التي نواجهها في عالمنا بمختلف صورها تفرض علينا ضرورة تعزيز دور الأمم المتحدة وتعزيز ثقافة السلام التي تركز على عناصر عدم العنف واحترام الحقوق الأساسية للإنسان وحريات الآخرين، وتمس عدداً من جوانب الحياة الإنسانية وثقافات الشعوب وسلوكها وقيمها التي اكتسبتها عبر التاريخ الطويل وممارساتها الإنسانية العديدة. وشكراً لكم.
I thank the distinguished permanent representative of Saudi Arabia for his statement, and I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Algeria.
Thank you, President. Algeria aligns itself with the statement delivered by the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela on behalf of the group of friends in defense of the UN Charter. We wish also to express our appreciation to Bangladesh for the effort deployed towards producing the resolution tabled today. Algeria is proud to be among the co-sponsors of this text. In front of the multi-dimensional challenges our world is facing, the concept of culture of peace has to be provided with concrete sense beyond basic narratives or words. The culture of peace is being questioned and deeply challenged in many places around the globe, thus requiring our full commitment to translate the content of the Program of Action and the Declaration on a Culture of Peace into realities. These two documents that this August Assembly adopted 25 years ago represented the universal reference for laying solid foundations of a culture of peace. In this regard, we wish to underline the following. First, nurturing a culture of peace means an investment in a peaceful future based on the principles of dialogue, tolerance, and cooperation. A peaceful future based also on the respect of international law and human rights principles. Algeria is a strong believer that youth, children, and more generally the future generations have to be our priority while deploying efforts toward promoting a culture of peace. In this connection, Algeria has proudly elaborated and facilitated the adoption of the Resolution 72130, which declared 16 May as the International Day of Living Together in Peace. The celebration of this day has to be seized by all relevant actors of the international community as an opportunity to transcend differences and to promote tolerance, dialogue, cooperation, and reconciliation. Second, our engagement around the matter of culture of peace has to remain guided by the provisions stipulated in the Declaration of a Culture of Peace of 1999. Algeria recalls that Article 3 of the Declaration on Culture of Peace mentions clearly that the culture of peace is integrally linked to realizing fully the rights of all peoples, including those living under colonial or other forms of domination or foreign occupation, to self-determination enshrined in the Charter of the United Nations. The debate around the follow-up on the program of action and the Declaration of Culture of Peace would be incomplete if we omit important principles contained in these documents. This same Assembly adopted while we are about to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the adoption of these two milestone documents. Third, culture of peace means also condemning clearly and unanimously the horrific aggression being committed in Gaza against innocent civilians. It means promoting the values and principles of international law and human rights to hold the perpetrators of these unspeakable violations accountable. It means ending impunity and bringing the perpetrators to justice. It means that there should be no room for double standards and biased approaches in dealing with the situation in the occupied Palestinian territories, in particular in Gaza. It means also that we have to make good use of all the tools we have to stop the destruction and the bloodshedding. Let's confer a meaning to the culture of peace. In conclusion, Algeria remains committed to support all positive initiatives aiming at strengthening the culture of peace in light of the provisions contained in the Programme of Action and the Declaration on Culture of Peace. I thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Algeria for his statement. Excellencies, we have heard the last speaker in the debate on this item. We shall now proceed to consider draft resolution A/78/L57. I give the floor to the representative of the Secretariat.
Thank you, Mr. President. The present oral statement is made in the context of Rule 153 of the Rules of Procedure of the General Assembly. It has also been distributed to member states. Under the terms of operative paragraph 20 of the draft resolution, the Assembly would request its President to convene within existing resources a day-long high-level forum during its 78th session to commemorate the 25th anniversary of the adoption of the Declaration and Program of Action on the Culture of Peace. With regards to operative paragraph 20 of the draft resolution, reference is made to operative paragraph 11 of the General Assembly Resolution 69-250 and subsequent resolutions, the most recent of which is Resolution 78/245 of 22nd December 2023, in which the Assembly invited member states to include in new legislative mandates adequate information on the modalities for the organization of conferences or meetings. The Secretariat has taken note of the request by the General Assembly to implement the new mandate within existing budgetary resources. The Secretariat wishes to inform the General Assembly that its ability to implement the mandate will depend on the availability of adequate cash resources.
I thank the representative of the Secretariat. For your information, the draft resolution is closed for e-sponsorship. I now give the floor to the representative of the Secretariat.
I should like to announce that since the submission of the draft resolution, and in addition to the delegations listed on the L document, the following countries have also become co-sponsors of A/78/L57: Algeria, Angola, Armenia, Austria, Azerbaijan, Bahrain, Belarus, Belize, the plurinational state of Bolivia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Brunei Darussalam, Bulgaria, Burkina Faso, Cambodia, Canada, China, Colombia, Costa Rica, Cote d'Ivoire, Croatia, Denmark, Dominican Republic, Equatorial Guinea, Fiji, Finland, Gambia, Germany, Greece, Guatemala, Guyana, Honduras, Hungary, Iceland, India, Indonesia, Japan, Jordan, Kazakhstan, Kenya, Kuwait, Kyrgyzstan, Latvia, Lebanon, Luxembourg, Malawi, Malaysia, Maldives, Mali, Mauritius, Mexico, Mongolia, Montenegro, Morocco, Myanmar, Namibia, Nepal, Kingdom of the Netherlands, Nicaragua, Nigeria, North Macedonia, Pakistan, Palau, Papua New Guinea, Paraguay, Peru, Philippines, Portugal, Republic of Korea, San Marino, Saudi Arabia, Senegal, Serbia, Sierra Leone, Singapore, Slovenia, South Africa, Spain, Sri Lanka, Suriname, Sweden, Tajikistan, Thailand, Timor-Leste, Trinidad and Tobago, Turkey, Uganda, United Arab Emirates, Uruguay, Uzbekistan, Vanuatu, Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, Vietnam, and Yemen. If any other country wish to co-sponsor A/78L57, please signify by pressing the microphone button now. Eritrea, Sudan, Rwanda, Cameroon, Chad, Egypt, Ecuador, Tunisia, Oman, Togo, Ukraine, Mozambique, Cabo Verde, State of Palestine, Israel,
Israel has asked for the floor on a point of order. So the floor is yours. Israel.
Mr. President, paragraph 5 of the Annex of General Assembly Resolution A/Res/52-250, titled Question of Palestine, and dated 2nd July 1998, determined that the Palestinians have the right to co-sponsor draft resolutions and decisions on Palestinian and Middle East issues. The subject matter of this resolution clearly does not fall within the parameters given in the annex of the resolution 52-250. I would like to stress the importance we attach to following the rules of procedure of this organization. The rules of co-sponsorship have been clearly laid out in the rules and regulations governing this organization. Any decision to change these rules would serve only to undermine this institution. I request that my statement be included in the official records of the meeting. Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Israel for her statement, which has been taken note of.
Mr. President, can you announce that Israel is not a co-sponsor of draft resolution 057?
Yeah. I might also add that, with respect, that the State of Israel is not a co-sponsor of this resolution. Thank you. Right. So now we go to action on the draft resolution. This one. Right. There is a The Assembly will now take a decision on draft resolution A/78/L57 entitled Follow-up to the Declaration and Program of Action on a Culture of Peace. May I take it that the Assembly decides to adopt draft resolution A/78/L57 It is so decided. Continue on page 7. Okay. Right, here we are. Right, reply. Right. Who has requested it? Israel? The exercise that had been requested. Yeah. Exercise of the right of reply has been requested. May I remind members that statements in the exercise of the right of reply are limited to 10 minutes for the first intervention and to 5 minutes for the second intervention, and should be made by delegations from their seats. You to Israel. I call on the representative of Israel to exercise the right of intervention.
Thank you. Today we are here to discuss the culture of peace. What a grand phrase. The resolution which has been adopted talks about preventing violent extremism and recalls resolutions on terrorism. It recognizes different big words such as prevention of conflicts, the peaceful settlement of disputes, peacekeeping, peace building, mediation, and more. It takes note of the United Nations strategy and plan of action to counter hate speech. Yet, none of these sayings are translated into action. It has been over 200 days since the October 7th massacre. Hamas carried out the most heinous and widespread massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. Entire families were wiped from the earth, and peaceful communities were turned to ash. Israeli women were the victims of systematic rape, and over 250 hostages were taken by Hamas to Gaza. This was a planned attack, which was the result of years of incitement. Yet, almost none of those who chose to take the floor today chose to condemn the horrific acts of Hamas. No one chose to address the ongoing incitement on Palestinian official media channels or the indoctrination in their schools and educational materials. Only the one-sided criticism over the right of my country to protect itself and its citizens. Israel has the right to self-defense, as well as the basic duty to protect its citizens from a terrorist organization calling for its annihilation. Israel has a firm commitment to international law, which is not dependent on the proceedings at the ICJ. Some member states in this room today, instead of promoting a culture of peace, are doing the opposite in an attempt to limit and even nullify Israel's right to self-defense and the attempts to release the hostages. No one condemned the rise in anti-Semitism across the world. The waves of protests and the demonstrations in support of Hamas, which embody a discourse of hatred and anti-Semitism, these must be condemned. Is that not worth mentioning when we are talking under an item which claims its goal is to combat hate speech, intolerance, xenophobia? Does that not include combating anti-Semitism? When certain member states in this room continue to dance the tune of a terror organization and repeat false accusations, this does not help to promote a culture of peace. The de-radicalization of the Palestinian society and stopping the culture of hate is vital in achieving a culture of peace. I will conclude by calling for the immediate release of all hostages held in Gaza, 133 people, including 19 men, 2 children, and 10 persons over the age of 75. Join our call for their release and show real action in the implementation of the culture of peace. Thank you.
The General Assembly has thus concluded this stage of its consideration of Agenda Item 14. The General Assembly will resume its consideration of Agenda Item 13, entitled Integrated and Coordinated Implementation of and Follow-up to the Outcomes of the Major United Nations Conferences and Summits in the Economic, Social, and Related Fields. Take action. To take action on a draft resolution issued as document A/78/L60. I give the floor to the distinguished permanent representative of Tajikistan to introduce the draft resolution A/78/L60.
President, thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I have the honor on behalf of Afghanistan, Pakistan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and my own country, Tajikistan, to introduce the draft resolution A/78/L60, by which the General Assembly will proclaim May 24th as the International Day of Markhor, to be commemorated every year. The markhor is an iconic and ecologically significant species found across the mountainous region of Central and South Asia, including Afghanistan, India, Pakistan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan. It was categorized as a near threatened in 2014 and is on the International Union for Conservation of Nature Red List of Threatened Species, and has been included in Appendix 1 to the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora since 1992. Preserving the markhor and its natural habitat stands as not only an ecological necessity, but also as a substantial opportunity to enhance the regional economy, advance conservation endeavors, and stimulate sustainable tourism and economic development. It's crucial to emphasize that conservation efforts targeting the markhor will not only safeguard the ecosystem, but also yield economic benefits. Highlighting the ecological significance of the markhor, it's imperative to recognize its role as a valuable species that contributes significantly to the local economy and various conservation initiatives. Furthermore, acknowledging the importance of national and regional initiatives aimed at fostering cooperation among range states, promoting transboundary approaches, and establishing mechanisms at the regional level to support the conservation of the markhor is essential. These collaborative efforts are instrumental in ensuring the long-term preservation of this iconic species and its habitat. To this end, Tajikistan will host the 9th World Conference on Mountain Ungulates, to be held in Dushanbe from 12th to 15th of October 2024, and invites everyone to participate in it. Mr. President, we believe the proclamation of May 24th as the International Day of Markhor will make a significant milestone in our efforts to conserve the markhor, including the establishment of breeding programs and the development of regional strategy and national action plans that aim to protect the species throughout its range. Mr. President, to conclude, on behalf of the members of the core group, I wish to express my sincere gratitude to all delegations for their constructive and valuable proposals and flexibility demonstrated during the informals. We look forward to working with you all and all the UN agencies, in particular UNEP, as well as all relevant stakeholders, to mark the day in a meaningful way. I would also like to thank all member states that have co-sponsored this resolution and invite others to join this initiative today. It would also be an honor to be able to count on Assembly's unanimous support of the draft resolution A/78/L60 can be adopted by consensus. I thank you for your attention.
I thank the distinguished permanent representative of Tajikistan for that presentation. We shall now proceed to consider draft resolution A/78/L60. For your information, the draft resolution is closed for e-sponsorship. I now give the floor to the representative of the Secretariat.
I should like to announce that since the submission of the draft resolution, and in addition to the delegations listed on the L document, the following countries have also become co-sponsors of A/78/L60: Azerbaijan, Bangladesh, Belarus, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Cuba, Egypt, Germany, Indonesia, Jordan, Kyrgyzstan, Libya, Nicaragua, Paraguay, Portugal, and Singapore. If any other countries wish to co-sponsor A/78/L60, please signify by pressing the microphone button. Lebanon, Senegal, this concludes the list of co-sponsors for L60.
I thank the representative of the Secretariat. The General Assembly will now take a decision on draft resolution A/78/L60 entitled International Day of Markhor. May I take it that the Assembly decides to adopt the draft resolution A/78/L60? It is so decided. The General Assembly has thus concluded this stage of its consideration of Agenda Item 13. Then the General Assembly will resume now its consideration of Sub-Item B of Agenda Item 20, entitled Follow-up to the Second United Nations Conference on Landlocked Developing Countries, to take action on a draft decision issued as document A/78/L61. We shall now proceed to consider draft decision A/78/L61. Yeah. The draft decision is A/78/L71, entitled Participation of Non-Governmental Organizations, Civil Society Organizations, Academic Institutions, and Private Sector in the Third United Nations Conference on Landlocked Developing Countries. May I take it that the Assembly wishes to adopt draft resolution A/78/L61? It is so decided. That concludes it. No? The General Assembly has thus concluded this stage of its consideration of Sub-Item B of Agenda Item 20. I now invite the attention of the General Assembly to draft resolution A/78/L59, circulated under sub-item A of agenda item 23, entitled Agriculture Development, Food Security and Nutrition. Members will recall that the General Assembly concluded its consideration of sub-item A of agenda item 23 at its 49th plenary meeting on 19th December 2023. In order for the Assembly to take action on the draft resolution, it will be necessary to reopen consideration of sub-item A of agenda item 23. May I take it that it is the wish of the General Assembly to reopen the consideration of sub-item A of agenda item 23? It is so decided. Members will recall that at its second plenary meeting on 8th September 2023, the General Assembly decided to allocate sub-item A of agenda item 23 to the second committee. To enable the Assembly to take action expeditiously on the document, may I take it that the Assembly wishes to consider sub-item A of agenda item 23 directly in plenary meeting and proceed immediately to its consideration? I hear no objection. It is so decided. The General Assembly will resume its consideration of sub-item A of agenda item 23 to take action on the draft resolution issued as A/78/L59. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of the United States to introduce draft resolution A/78/L59.
And good afternoon, Mr. President, colleagues, and distinguished delegates. My name is Xochitl Torres Small. I'm the Deputy Secretary of the United States Department of Agriculture. I'm honored to be standing here amidst all of you, introducing a resolution declaring 2026 as the International Year of the Woman Farmer. The United States thanks member states that have joined us in co-sponsoring this resolution. We also thank the thousands of people throughout the agricultural supply chain and their advocates who work tirelessly to advance women's contributions and leadership in agriculture. We recognize and honor your work today. I would also like to thank the 3 UN Rome-based agencies, in particular the Food and Agriculture Organization, for all of its support and work on the proposed resolution. We look forward to continuing to partner with you on this exciting initiative through 2026 and beyond. Most importantly, thank you to the women farmers at the heart of this resolution, whose work, too often unseen and minimalized due to deeply rooted gender inequality, has nourished generations and enriched communities across our globe. Those of us who work in agriculture recognize that women farmers are the backbone of agriculture globally. Yet even as women play a crucial role in global food security, women are more likely to face food insecurity. And it doesn't stop there. When women face food insecurity, that leads to malnutrition. It undermines their health. That perpetuates unjust cycles of poverty, food insecurity, and poor health outcomes. Exacerbating this situation is the rise in global shocks and stressors, including the COVID-19 pandemic, conflicts, and climate change, which have disproportionately affected women and girls across agri-food systems. We can and must do better to support women in agriculture and address the barriers and discrimination they face. Therefore, it is our belief that by declaring 2026 as the International Year of the Woman Farmer, the global community can raise awareness of the essential role of women in agriculture and the barriers they face and overcome to feed future generations. It's our hope that this year can catalyze collaboration to dismantle those barriers and support the achievement of gender equality and the entire 2030 Agenda. By adopting this resolution, the United Nations will acknowledge the crucial role of women in agriculture, bring attention to the barriers they continue to face across agri-food systems, and raise awareness for the initiatives, policies, and actions that will be taken to address these issues and promote gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls in all their diversity. This resolution highlights the critical importance of women's improved access to, ownership of, and control over resources, inputs, and services, including land, training and capacity building, credit, and technology. It recognizes the benefits we all reap when women and girls have equal access to education and on-farm activities that build resilience to the aforementioned shocks and stressors. It underscores that women's leadership is essential to global food security and to promoting global gender equality in agriculture. This resolution acknowledges the central role that women continue to play in accelerating the transition to a more sustainable agri-food system. Our hope is that governments, civil society, the nonprofit sector, and private industry worldwide come together around the International Year of the Woman Farmer in support of policies, programs, research, and activities that promote gender equality and the empowerment of women farmers. By working together, we can empower women farmers as leaders in global efforts to build more productive, resilient food systems, and in so doing, increase their incomes and contribute significantly to rural economic prosperity, sustainability, and food security. Thank you for your consideration of the 2026 International Year of the Woman Farmer Resolution as we work to promote gender equality and the empowerment of all women farmers around the world, and to ensure agriculture continues to nourish our planet for generations to come. I know that this advancement for women farmers and gender equality will lead to a brighter future for us all. Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of the United States. We shall now proceed to consider draft resolution A/78/L59. For your information, the draft resolution is closed for e-sponsorship. I now give the floor to the representative of the Secretariat. The floor is yours.
I should like to announce that since the submission of the draft resolution, and in addition to the delegations listed on the L document, the following countries have also become co-sponsors of A/78/L59. Albania, Algeria, Andorra, Armenia, Australia, Austria, Azerbaijan, Bangladesh, the plurinational state of Bolivia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Botswana, Bulgaria, Cambodia, Canada, Chile, China, Costa Rica, Croatia, Cyprus, Czechia, Democratic Republic of the Congo, Dominican Republic, Egypt, El Salvador, Eritrea, Estonia, Fiji, Finland, Gabon, Gambia, Georgia, Greece, Guyana, Haiti, Honduras, Hungary, Iceland, Indonesia, Ireland, Jamaica, Kazakhstan, Kenya, Kyrgyzstan, Lao People's Democratic Republic, Latvia, Lesotho, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Malaysia, Malta, Montenegro, Myanmar, Nepal, Kingdom of the Netherlands, New Zealand, North Macedonia, Norway, Pakistan, Palau, Panama, Papua New Guinea, Paraguay, Poland, Portugal, Republic of Moldova, Romania, San Marino, Saudi Arabia, Senegal, Serbia, Singapore, Slovenia, South Africa, Spain, Sri Lanka, Suriname, Sweden, Thailand, Trinidad and Tobago, Turkey, Turkmenistan, Uganda, Ukraine, United Arab Emirates, United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, United Republic of Tanzania, Uzbekistan, Yemen, and Zambia. If any other countries wish to co-sponsor A/78L59, please signify by pressing the microphone button now. Cabo Verde, Djibouti, Jordan, Burundi, Timor-Leste, Ecuador, Eswatini, Mozambique, Barbados, Liechtenstein, Burkina Faso, Lebanon, Liberia, Tunisia, Belgium, Tajikistan. I already called Ecuador and Liberia. This concludes the list of co-sponsors.
I thank the representative of the Secretariat. The Assembly will now proceed to take a decision on draft resolution A/78/L59 entitled International Year of the Woman Farmer 2026. May I take it that the Assembly decides to adopt draft resolution A/78/L59? It is so decided. May I take it that it is the wish of the General Assembly to conclude its consideration of sub-item A of agenda item 23? It is so decided. The General Assembly will now resume its consideration of agenda item 125, entitled Global Health and Foreign Policy, to take action on a draft resolution issued as document A/78/L62 and the draft amendments contained in documents A/78/L64, A/78/L65, and A/78/L66. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of South Africa to introduce draft resolution A/78/L62.
Mr. President, Excellencies, esteemed colleagues, I have the privilege to present the draft resolution on behalf of the core group of the Foreign Policy and Global Health Initiative, consisting of the following countries: Brazil, France, Indonesia, Norway, Senegal, Thailand, and my own country, South Africa. We would like to extend our profound appreciation to all delegations for the time invested and their constructive participation since the beginning of their discussions on this resolution on addressing global health challenges in the foreign policy space. We also extend our appreciation to the World Health Organization for the expertise it has provided throughout the negotiation process. The text was first circulated last year, December, and we have undertaken an exhaustive approach that allowed all delegations an opportunity to positively contribute to the discussions in a fair and transparent manner. Mr. President, the Foreign Policy and Global Health Core Group was launched in 2006 by its foreign ministers who had previously served as health ministers for their respective countries. They had identified the nexus between health and foreign policy and recognized the cross-border nature of health threats and the need for partnerships, cooperation, and solidarity at all levels, bilaterally, regionally, and internationally, in mitigating our common challenges in the face of global health challenges and emergencies. The foreign ministers of this initiative had adopted in 2007 the Oslo Declaration outlining 10 points that are still very relevant today to raise the priority of health in foreign policy. The Oslo Declaration framed the context whereby the global health and foreign policy was included in the agenda of the General Assembly. Mr. President, we all observed during the COVID-19 pandemic, one of the greatest health emergencies and challenges of our time, that no single country can overcome a global pandemic on its own. Therefore, we should renew our efforts and commitments to sustain political momentum and ensure concerted action towards strengthening health systems that are resilient against any health challenges and that we may encounter. Mr. President, this resolution aims to address a number of concerns as they pertain to international cooperation to strengthen global health. There is a recognition of securing the supply of health products and the access to technologies for all countries in the interest of preserving humanity. This is a question of equitable access and fairer and just distribution channels of health products and technologies, which is currently dependent on manufacturing facilities concentrated in one part of the world. It also demonstrates the importance and benefits of equitable access to technologies and the value of predictable, sustainable, and sufficient development finance to developing countries from all sources to support the creation of capacity. An example which is cited in the text is the collaboration on mRNA vaccine technology hubs and the establishment of the Pandemic Fund, along with other global funding initiatives aimed at addressing inequalities in health financing. This resolution further recognizes the need for women and girls to access health, including sexual and reproductive health and reproductive rights, as well as those who are marginalized and in vulnerable situations and humanitarian settings. It further commits to mainstreaming a gender perspective into all policies and programs, including in budgetary responses. It also reiterates the need to step up our prevention efforts, an essential condition for avoiding the emergence of new pandemics. To this end, it recommends implementing and reinforcing the One Health approach, which should follow the guidelines of the quadripartite. Mr. President, if we want to be collectively stronger in the face of future health emergencies, we need to ensure that our health workers are prepared. This resolution stresses the importance of stepping up training efforts. The creation of the WHO Academy in 2024 will be a key element of this. It urges for timely, equitable, and unhindered access to safe, affordable, effective, and quality medicines, vaccines, diagnostics, therapeutics, and other health products, especially during the times of health emergencies. This is a similar call as has been established in humanitarian missions, because unhindered access is the premise under which lives are saved. COVID-19 taught us many lessons, particularly that we need to be prepared for future pandemics and also ensuring that we advance to universal health coverage. This can be achieved if we can address the persisting inequalities both within and among states. It is the reason why this resolution is also requesting the President of the General Assembly to convene in 2025 a one-day high-level interactive dialogue on addressing the social, economic, and environmental determinants of health. All these efforts will further contribute to the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. Mr. President, this resolution deserves its full implementation, and we call on all member states to fully support the consensus adoption of it. We believe it is a very balanced text that fully complements the 3 political declarations that were adopted last year. At its heart is the fundamental element needed for the full realization and enjoyment of the right of everyone to the highest attainable standard of physical and mental health, and the correspondent objectives of universal health coverage and health for all without discrimination, with special attention to reaching the Sustainable Development Goals. I thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of South Africa for his statement. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Belgium to introduce draft resolution A/78/L64.
Thank you, Mr. President. Excellencies, dear colleagues, this amendment will come as no surprise, especially to those involved in discussions of this draft resolution. Claims that the EU has acted in anything but good faith and full transparency are utterly false. The EU has explained consistently, repeatedly, and in painstaking detail why this formulation is not acceptable, because it is used to untransparently imply that sanctions and intellectual property rights hinder access to safe, affordable, effective, and quality medicines, vaccines, diagnostics and therapeutics, and other health products and technologies. The EU has voted this language consistently in the General Assembly in the past. We spared no effort or solution. We asked to delete this unclear wording, but also offered alternative formulations, including by enumerating clearly in the text what issues do or can potentially hinder access to medical countermeasures. Regrettably, our proposals were not accepted or even entertained or discussed. To be clear, the word unhindered is not a taboo, but we have repeatedly asked for clarification of what the term unhindered refers to, and cannot accept hiding negative or false narratives about sanctions, intellectual property rights, and possibly other unnamed issues behind opaque formulations that are then used against us in other discussions. We stress that forcing such established red lines is not the way to consensus. As a last resort, the EU thus tabled this amendment and asks to delete this term and will dissociate from it were the amendment not to pass. We will in any case continue to explain our position and propose more transparent formulations in other texts. I thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Belgium for his statement. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Switzerland to introduce draft amendment A/78/L65.
Monsieur le Président, la Suisse souhaite brièvement justifier la soumission de l'amendement au PP 29. La Suisse s'est engagée de manière active et constructive tout au long des négociations et rejoint le consensus sur des grandes parties du texte. Toutefois, nous ne sommes malheureusement pas en matière de nous joindre au consensus au PP 29. Selon nous, celui-ci porte gravement atteinte à la protection des droits de propriété intellectuelle en omettant les réserves sur le transfert des technologies et le savoir-faire. Nous regrettons que nos préoccupations n'ayant pas été prises en considération malgré le fait que nous les ayons continuellement soulevées. La position de la Suisse concernant la protection des droits de propriété intellectuelle est bien connue et de longue date. La propriété intellectuelle joue un rôle essentiel en encourageant le développement des médicaments nouveaux, améliorés et vitaux qui répondent aux défis sanitaires d'aujourd'hui et de demain. Nous nous opposons aux langues utilisées ici à New York qui tentent d'affaiblir les droits et les obligations soigneusement négociés dans le cadre de l'accord de l'OMS sur les aspects de droits de propriété intellectuelle qui touchent au commerce. Selon nous, un tel affaiblissement aura un impact négatif sur la capacité des pays à encourager le développement de nouveaux médicaments et l'accès à ceux-ci. Compte tenu de ces préoccupations, la Suisse propose d'inclure la réserve à des conditions volontaires et mutuellement convenues au PP 29. Nous invitons les États membres à soutenir ces propositions d'amendement. Merci pour votre attention.
I thank the distinguished representative of Switzerland for her presentation. And I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Ukraine to introduce draft amendment A/78/L66.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the immense significance of health and healthcare on both personal and global level could hardly be challenged by anyone. COVID-19 has particularly provided us with the critical lesson about the imperative to unite efforts in safeguarding public health and addressing global health challenges. That's why Ukraine commends the initiative of elaborating this draft and would like to see this resolution as a solid contribution to the global health and foreign policy. To this end, it's our firm belief that the resolution should be of comprehensive nature and encompass all aspects that may affect our efforts in this domain. Impact of armed conflict on healthcare systems is one of those aspects, and it would be a mistake to overlook it. Ukraine, as a country defending itself in the war of attrition waged by the Russian Federation, has felt this devastating impact almost immediately, as well as all other countries that suffer from the armed conflicts on their territories. The implications for healthcare are similar in all situations of conflict, and they require to be recognized, addressed, and resolved by the international community. The delivery of essential healthcare services is disrupted, and the access to these services is complicated. Healthcare facilities are being damaged or destroyed. The number of medical professionals decreases due to casualties and displacement and disruption of medical education. The spread of infectious disease in conflict-affected areas is an immediate outcome of an armed conflict. Humanitarian access to affected populations, including healthcare assistance, is restricted in these territories. We cannot ignore the fact that armed conflicts pose significant challenges for healthcare systems in third countries as well. Millions of refugees who are fleeing abroad for safety significantly overburden the healthcare systems of the host countries. The impact of armed conflicts on healthcare can have long-lasting effects on the health and well-being of populations, including increased mortality rates, disability, and decreased life expectancy. Rebuilding healthcare infrastructure and restoring healthcare services can be a lengthy and challenging process after conflicts end. In view thereof, my delegation considers the absence of the relevant provision of the impact of an armed conflict on health in the draft resolution would reduce its relevance and credibility. To fix this gap, Ukraine has introduced the amendment A/78/L66 to the draft, notably preambular paragraph PP 30 bis, reflecting this important nexus between armed conflict and health. By supporting this proposal, you will recognize that healthcare is among the most suffered in any situation of conflict. There are dozens of such situations throughout the globe, and each requires our attention and coordinated response. By supporting this proposal, you will also pay tribute to the courage and dedication of all professionals and volunteers who keep healthcare systems functioning and help affected populations in situations of armed conflict. In this regard, I urge you to make the right choice and support the amendment. I thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Ukraine for his statement. We shall now proceed to consider draft resolution A/78/L62 and draft amendments A/78/L64, L65, and L66. For your information, the draft resolution and the draft amendments have closed for e-sponsorship. I give the floor now to the representative of the Secretariat.
I should like to announce that since the submission of the draft resolution and in addition to the delegations listed on the L document, the following countries have also become co-sponsors of draft resolution A/78/L62: El Salvador, Mali, Uganda, and Vietnam. If any other country wish to co-sponsor A/78/L62, please signify by pressing the microphone button now. Philippines, Rwanda, Angola, Eswatini, Chad, Djibouti, Cambodia. This concludes the Timor-Leste. Tunisia. I have already read out Philippines, Rwanda, and Angola. If you could depress the buttons, please. This concludes the list of co-sponsors for L62. Since the submission of the draft amendment L64, and in addition to the delegations listed on the L document, the following countries have also become co-sponsors of A/78/L64: North Macedonia, Switzerland, and Ukraine. If any other countries wish to co-sponsor draft amendment A/78/L64, please signify by pressing the microphone button now. Israel, United Kingdom, Japan, United States, This concludes the list of additional co-sponsors for L64. I should like to announce that since the submission of the draft amendment L65, and in addition to the delegation listed on the L document, Japan has also become a co-sponsor of L65. If any other countries wish to co-sponsor draft amendment A/78/L65, please signify by pressing the microphone button now. United States, Israel, United Kingdom, this concludes the list of additional co-sponsors of L65. Since the submission of the draft amendment L66, and in addition to the delegation listed on the L document, no other country has become a co-sponsor of the draft amendment A/78/L66. If any other countries wish to co-sponsor the draft amendment A/78/L66, please signify by pressing the microphone button now. I see none. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank the representative of the Secretariat. Delegations wishing to make a statement in explanation of vote before the vote on any proposal under this item are invited to do so now in one intervention. After action on all of them, there will be an opportunity for explanations of vote after the vote on any or all of them. Before giving the floor for explanations of vote before the vote, may I remind delegations that explanations of vote are limited to 10 minutes and should be made by delegations from their seats. Should I give it to Cuba? Yeah. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Cuba.
Gracias, señor presidente. Antes de comenzar la intervención, quisiera preguntar si debemos esperar algún ejercicio de votación respecto a alguna de las enmiendas.
Distinguished delegates, may I remind you that delegations should make their positions clear in one statement with regard to the main resolution and the draft amendments. On, as I said before, on any proposal under this item, or in all of them, in one intervention. In one intervention. Yeah. May I ask the distinguished delegate from Cuba whether he still wants to speak, and if so, he may take the floor.
Gracias. Señor presidente, muchas gracias por su explicación. Realmente lo que queremos saber es si se ha solicitado votación alguna de las enmiendas, puesto que eso pudiera influir en el contenido de las intervenciones de las delegaciones. Normalmente, previo al ejercicio de las explicaciones de votos, las delegaciones sabemos cómo se van a adoptar las enmiendas que forman parte, sin dudas, del proceso de adopción. Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Si pudiera obtener mayor información al respecto.
Matter raised by the distinguished representative of Cuba in this manner. A recorded vote has been asked on L64 by South Africa. And a recorded vote has also been asked on L65. Cuba, you may have you can have the floor if you wish to respond.
Gracias, señor presidente. Quisiera formular mi explicación de voto en ese caso. Con su permiso.
Yes, you may proceed.
Gracias, señor presidente. Para Cuba, la promoción y protección del derecho a la salud y el acceso de todas las personas a servicios de salud de calidad ha sido una prioridad. Estamos plenamente comprometidos con los esfuerzos del sistema de las Naciones Unidas, bajo el liderazgo de la Organización Mundial de la Salud, para avanzar de manera colectiva en la solución de los retos en materia de salud que tiene la comunidad internacional. Existen los recursos, las tecnologías y los conocimientos para solucionar la gran mayoría de los retos que enfrentamos en este ámbito. Sin embargo, como se privilegian los dividendos en lugar de la solidaridad, millones de personas, en su mayoría en el sur, mueren de enfermedades curables. La resolución que pronto adoptaremos es un ejercicio encaminado en la dirección correcta y, por tanto, cuenta con todo nuestro apoyo. Agradecemos a Sudáfrica y los promotores principales del texto su compromiso con esta cuestión, así como los denodados esfuerzos para desarrollar un proceso de negociación que fue inclusivo, profundo, pausado y muy serio. Nos constan los esfuerzos de Sudáfrica y otros miembros del grupo de promotores principales para contribuir al consenso. Desafortunadamente se han presentado contra la resolución las enmiendas L64 y L65 que responden a una lógica excluyente. Los lenguajes que estas enmiendas buscan modificar son de particular importancia para los países en desarrollo y representan un llamado a la cooperación internacional, el intercambio y la solidaridad, quienes ayer se desarrollaron como resultado, entre otros factores, de la expoliación de recursos durante el colonialismo y luego han continuado beneficiándose de un orden internacional que es excluyente e injusto, hoy tratan de impedir que el mundo en desarrollo acceda en igualdad de condiciones a insumos médicos, recursos, tecnologías y conocimientos necesarios para ofrecer a nuestros pueblos mejores servicios y atención de salud. La pandemia de la COVID-19 demostró con elocuencia el injusto orden internacional actual. La falta de acceso de los países en desarrollo a recursos, conocimientos y tecnologías es una de las características de dicho orden, que es desigual por naturaleza y debe ser sustituido con urgencia por uno nuevo, en el que se privilegie la solidaridad y la cooperación internacional. Las enmiendas L64 y L65 buscan perpetuar el privilegio de unos y la exclusión de la mayoría. Con la presentación de estas enmiendas, señor presidente, resulta difícil creer en el supuesto compromiso con la Agenda 2030 y la promesa de no dejar a nadie atrás, o con un genuino interés de construir un futuro mejor para todos y unas Naciones Unidas más justas, incluyendo a partir del Pacto del Futuro bajo negociación. ¿Qué futuro nos espera a los países en desarrollo si los países ricos buscan perpetuar las inequidades del presente? Estas enmiendas responden a la misma lógica excluyente de quienes no reconocen el derecho al desarrollo o de quienes justifican la imposición de medidas coercitivas unilaterales contra el sur, que violan la Carta de las Naciones Unidas y tienen un impacto directo y muy negativo sobre los derechos humanos y particularmente sobre la salud. Por estas razones, mi delegación votará en contra de las enmiendas L64 y L65 e invitamos a las delegaciones a hacer lo propio. Es preciso fortalecer la capacidad de las Naciones Unidas y de nuestros países para atender las necesidades de salud de nuestros pueblos y estar en mejores condiciones de enfrentar las presentes y futuras enfermedades. Es imprescindible, señor presidente, fomentar el espíritu de cooperación y solidaridad internacional en este ámbito. En esos esfuerzos podrá siempre contarse con la modesta contribución de Cuba. Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
I thank the distinguished representative of Cuba for his explanation of vote before the vote. Before we proceed to take a decision on draft resolution A/78/L62, in accordance with Rule 90 of the Rules of Procedure, the Assembly shall first take a decision on draft amendments A/78/L64, A/78/L65, and A/78/L66 one by one. The Assembly will now take a decision on draft amendment A/78/L64. A recorded vote has been requested. We shall now begin the voting process. Those in favor of draft amendment A/78/L64, please signify. Those against? Abstentions.
The General Assembly is now voting on draft amendment A/78/L64. Will all delegations confirm that their votes are accurately reflected on the screen? South Africa. Oh, yeah. We see that South Africa is pressing the button. May we ask if the microphone button is malfunctioning or the voting function is malfunctioning? No. So
No, that's fine.
the voting has been completed. Please lock the machine.
The voting result.
Just one second.
Sorry. Yeah. The result of the vote is as follows. In favor 48, against 103, abstentions 4. The draft amendment A/78/L64 is not adopted. The Assembly will now take a decision on draft amendment A/78/L65. A recorded vote has been requested. We shall now begin the voting process. We're done? Yeah. Can I repeat myself? The Assembly will now take a decision on draft amendment A/78/L65. A recorded vote has been requested. We shall now begin the voting process. Those in favor of draft amendment A/78/L65, please signify. Those against? Abstentions.
The General Assembly is now voting on draft amendment A/78/L65. With all delegations confirm that their votes are accurately reflected on the screen? The voting has been completed. Please lock the machine. Not adopted.
The result of the vote is as follows. The result of the vote is as follows. In favor 49, against 103, and 3 abstentions. The draft amendment A/78/L65 is not adopted. The Assembly will now take a decision on draft amendment A/78/L66. In the absence of a request for a recorded vote on the draft amendment, may I take it that the Assembly decides to adopt draft amendment A/78/L66? It is so decided. Since draft amendment A/78/L66 was adopted, we shall proceed to take action on draft resolution A/78/L62 as amended. Yes. I see that the United States has asked for the floor. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. It's a procedural request as well. As co-sponsors of the prior 2 amendments that were not adopted, we would like to request paragraph votes on PP 29 and OP 22 before we take action on the resolution. Thank you.
Just as for reasons of clarity, may I ask the distinguished representative of the United States to repeat the paragraphs, please? Thank you.
Thank you so much. PP 29 and OP 22.
Thank you. I shall be pleased if the distinguished representative of the United States please tell us as to whether you are asking for a single vote in respect of PP 29 and OP 22.
Thank you so much. No, they would be two different votes, one on each respective paragraph, given the two amendments. Thank you.
PP 29 and OP 22. Have we got the resolution yet? Paragraph. Excellencies, distinguished representatives, I now put the vote to the vote paragraph preambular 29 of the draft resolution A/78/L62. We shall now begin the voting process. Those in favor of the preambular paragraph 29 of the draft resolution A/78/L62, please signify. Those against? Abstentions.
The General Assembly is now voting on preambular paragraph 29 of the draft resolution A/78/L62. Will all delegations confirm that their votes are accurately reflected on the screen? The voting has been completed. Please lock the machine.
The result of the vote is as follows. In favor 103, against 48, abstentions 1. Preambular paragraph 29 of the draft resolution A/78/L62 is adopted. Right, let me go to the next one. That's OP 22. I now put to the vote operative paragraph 22 of the draft resolution A/78/L62. We shall now begin the voting process. Those in favor of operative paragraph 22 of the draft resolution A/78/L62, please signify. Those against? Abstentions.
The General Assembly is now voting on operative paragraph 22 of the draft resolution A/78/L62. With all delegations confirm that their votes are accurately reflected on the screen? The voting has been completed. Please lock the machine.
The result of the vote is as follows. In favor, 107. Against, 47. Abstentions, 1. Operative paragraph 22 of the draft resolution A/78/L61 is adopted. The Assembly will now take a decision on draft resolution A/78/L62 entitled Global Health and Foreign Policy, addressing global health challenges in the foreign policy space, as amended. May I take it that the Assembly decides to adopt draft resolution A/78/L62 as amended? It is so decided. After the vote? Right. Before giving the floor for explanations of vote after the vote, may I remind delegations that explanations of vote are limited to 10 minutes and should be made by delegations from their seats. Yeah, I give the floor. Okay. I give the floor to the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you, Mr. President, for giving me the floor. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Mr. President, Islamic Republic of Iran is honored to join the consensus of the draft resolution entitled Global Health and Foreign Policy, addressing global health challenges in the foreign policy space. I would like to extend my appreciation to the facilitator for their unwavering dedication and efforts during the negotiation of this resolution. Mr. President, as we look at the global health as a global shared responsibility, we emphatically acknowledge that foreign policy decisions can substantially affect global health outcomes with the potential to either positively or negatively impact them. Mr. President, despite the rhetoric of solidarity and cooperation in terms of global health, the reality on the ground paints a different picture. Development partners have almost failed to meet their commitment to global health based upon the principle of common but differentiated responsibility in order to address the disparity that plague our world. In this context, developing countries are disproportionately affected by global health challenges due to the lack of adequate access to essential medicine, inadequate healthcare infrastructure, and limited financial and technical resources. Mr. President, many countries are deeply concerned about the detrimental impacts of unilateral coercive measures on global health. Such measures including economic, trade, and technical barriers broadly hinder access to essential medicine and advanced technologies, disrupt global supply chain, and exacerbate shortages and scarcities. Furthermore, they impede humanitarian aid, undermine international collaboration, and jeopardize worldwide health and well-being. Regrettably, this critical issue have not been appropriately reflected in the final text. In conclusion, Mr. President, I would like to clarify that my delegation reserves its right to interpret the terms and concepts and provisions contained in the present resolution, consistent with its health national policies and development priorities, as well as in line with national sovereignty. My delegation also would like to disassociate itself from some controversial and non-consensual terms, including but not limited to gender perspective, marginalized group, sexual and reproductive health and reproductive rights, and family planning. I thank you very much, Mr. President.
Of Iran, for the Islamic Republic of Iran for his statement, and I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of the United States. The floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. I'm delivering the statement on behalf of the European Union and its member states, Georgia, Israel, Japan, Switzerland, Ukraine, the United Kingdom, and my own country, the United States. We are deeply disappointed in this process that has led to the text before us today. Not only was there not transparency in negotiations or serious consideration of our red lines, but a last-minute change to long-standing agreed language on access to sexual and reproductive health and reproductive rights in accordance with the program of action of the ICPD, Beijing, and the outcome documents of their review conferences, with no explanation and after no indications that this was a red line for delegations. The language, which has been in this resolution for more than 5 years, was not objected to by delegations and remained in the text consistently until the draft was placed under silence. This procedural move is not acceptable for our delegations. We cannot be weakening important language on this critical topic, especially as we celebrated the 30th anniversary of the ICPD Program of Action earlier this week, at a time where gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls is under threat around the world. We urge the core group of this resolution to restore this critical paragraph for future years. Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of the United States for her statement, and I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of India. The floor is yours.
I thank you, Mr. President. I take the floor to deliver this explanation of vote. India has abstained on the votes on the amendments for strictly procedural reasons. India, like some other delegations, was not involved in the negotiations of this resolution, which is of a very substantive nature and therefore requires careful consideration and consultations with stakeholders within our countries. My delegation learned of the resolution at a very late stage when all negotiations had already been concluded and we had not had any opportunity to consult among ourselves and express our views. At this late stage, there was simply not enough time for my delegation and capital to analyze a resolution as lengthy and substantive as this one, in consultation with all the relevant stakeholders. Furthermore, Mr. President, this resolution includes several issues that are presently still being discussed and negotiated in Geneva in the context of the Pandemics Treaty, and my delegation wishes to refrain from preempting the outcomes of the processes taking place in Geneva. It is for the above reasons that India has decided to abstain on the amendments. Mr. President, I would also wish to take the floor to deliver an explanation of position on the resolution. As explained earlier, India has procedural concerns on the resolution. We are concerned that negotiations on such a critical issue were conducted without major delegations like India being included. Global health challenges in foreign policy are high on India's priority and require detailed consultations with relevant stakeholders on the Indian side. However, we were neither accorded the opportunity to carry out these consultations, nor were we invited to present our views on the content of the resolution. While India does not oppose the resolution as a whole and would have wished to make constructive contributions to it, we are dismayed at the manner in which it was negotiated. My delegation therefore reserves the right to negotiate issues contained in this resolution during the negotiations in Geneva, according to our national interest. I thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of India for her statement, and I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Belgium on behalf of the European Union.
Thank you, Mr. President. Excellencies, I have the honor to speak on behalf of the European Union and its member states. The candidate countries Montenegro, Albania, Ukraine, the Republic of Moldova, and Bosnia and Herzegovina, the potential candidate country Georgia, as well as Monaco and the United States, align themselves with this explanation of position. We would like to begin by warmly thanking South Africa for their able facilitation and gracious leadership in this process. We also thank the other members of the core group, Brazil, France, Indonesia, Norway, Senegal, and Thailand, for their great efforts and engagement to reach agreement on this resolution. It was more than 2 years ago that we adopted the previous resolution. The world was only just starting to emerge from the COVID-19 pandemic. Russia had just begun its unprovoked aggression against Ukraine. Since then, we have seen many positive developments in the global health space. After 3 terrible years, the consequences of which the world still struggles with, the COVID-19 pandemic was declared ended. Last year, the UN membership came together at heads of state and government level to give political priority to health and adopt political declarations on the fight against tuberculosis, on advancing universal health coverage, and, as a first ever, on pandemic prevention, preparedness, and response. In Geneva, work was launched towards making the world a safer place by negotiating binding provisions in a pandemic agreement and by revision of the international health regulations. We have also taken great strides forwards on global solidarity and support for health and health systems. The EU has mobilized a total of more than 53.7 billion euro to help partner countries cope with the COVID-19 health emergency, including by providing almost 200 million euro in medical and personal protective equipment, donating half a billion vaccines, and exporting another 3.1 billion vaccines. The EU has also provided 1.7 billion euro in R&D investment into COVID-19 vaccines, 20% of the global total. The EU has already pledged 735 million euro to the new pandemic fund. The first call for proposals was a resounding success, and further calls are under preparation. Beyond health emergencies, Team Europe has stepped up contributions to the Global Fund, with EU and EU member states pledging 715 million euro, or almost half of all pledges last year. The EU has also invested 8.2 billion euro to support international collaborations on health research and innovation, including more than 140 million euro in 2024 alone to accelerate vaccine research, clinical trials, and the development of effective treatments in vulnerable countries. In 2022, the EU also adopted an ambitious new global health strategy, and we have doubled down on supporting our partners strengthen universal health coverage and partners' health systems. Through the Global Gateway and Team Europe initiative on manufacturing and access to vaccines, medicines, and health technologies, with an initial 1.3 billion euro backing, we have supported regional and local manufacturing and equitable access to quality, safe, effective, and affordable health products in line with SDG Target 3.8 in Egypt, Ghana, Nigeria, Rwanda, Senegal, South Africa, and elsewhere. The first mRNA facility opened in Rwanda in late 2023. Excellencies, despite positive progress and concerted efforts, dire and daunting challenges remain in achieving SDG 3, especially in Africa, in the least developed countries, in fragile and conflict-ridden countries. Looking ahead, achieving universal health coverage remains our primary goal, building resilient and equitable health systems able to provide essential public health functions and health services also during health emergencies, all the while prioritizing the needs of those most marginalized and vulnerable, those left furthest behind. This spring, we start work towards the high-level meeting on antimicrobial resistance to reinforce global commitment to combating the growing global crisis and health threat of antimicrobial resistance. Addressing the challenges of human, animal, and ecosystem health using the One Health approach is essential, including in tackling the root causes of pandemics. We welcome the fact that this resolution calls on all states to implement and reinforce the One Health approach, taking into account the guidelines of the quadripartite. We hope that this will inspire all states to incorporate such ambitious measures relating to prevention into their domestic policies as well as into international agreements. Mr. President, Excellencies, while global health is a high priority for the EU and its member states, this process has not been without its hiccups. The EU tabled an amendment to delete unhindered access from OP22. This should come as no surprise, as was explained in the presentation of the amendment. We continue to dissociate from OP22, and for the same reasons as we dissociate from the term universal in PP36. We also continue to dissociate from uncaveated references to technology transfer in paragraphs PP29 and OP6. The UN does not condone forced or illegal transfer of technology in the interest of maintaining the right balance between access and innovation. Thus, the EU position has been and remains that we should be able to agree that technology transfer has to be voluntary and on terms mutually agreed by the parties transferring and receiving technologies. While large and comparatively strong countries can fend for themselves in this respect, the UN, underlining the principles of voluntary and mutually agreed terms, is in the interest of especially other development countries, countries in special situations, those with new or emerging innovation ecosystems. We do not agree with the wording used in these paragraphs and will continue to insist on the appropriate terminology. While we showed flexibility in the interest of reaching consensus on PP47, OP4, OP7, and OP31, the EU position in future and other contexts, including the ongoing INB negotiations in Geneva, will continue to be to refer explicitly to the principles that technology transfer shall be voluntary and on mutually agreed terms. The EU has also repeatedly called for and supported language to reflect the devastation that war and armed conflict cause to health and health systems across the world. In this vein, we welcome the inclusion of the amendment put forward by Ukraine. We also align with the statement delivered by the United States and express our general dissatisfaction at lack of ambitious language on gender equality in the text. Finally, the EU is fully and unreservedly committed to the overarching objective of the resolution, which is to enhance global cooperation on health, and despite these concerns, joins consensus on the text. We will continue to work together with all members in bilateral, regional, and multilateral fora in the WHO and at the UN on the acute as well as long-term challenges to global health. In the short term, we call for the membership to prioritize and reinforce efforts to conclude the negotiations on the pandemic agreement as soon as possible and look forward to engaging on the antimicrobial resistance political declaration in view of an ambitious outcome and global agenda for cooperation on health in the UN in the years to come. I thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Belgium for his statement. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of the United Kingdom. The floor is yours.
Mr. President, Excellencies, the United Kingdom would like to begin by thanking the Republic of South Africa for their able facilitation in this process, and the Foreign Policy and Global Health Core Group, Brazil, France, Indonesia, Norway, Senegal, and Thailand for putting forward this important resolution and their work on it. The UK is committed to pursuing ambitious global health outcomes in support of achieving the SDGs and to addressing global health challenges in the foreign policy space. We therefore welcome this timely opportunity to discuss these issues and are grateful to all member states for their active engagement in this process. The resolution before us today rightfully acknowledges the importance of investment in health systems and universal health coverage for equitable and effective pandemic prevention, preparedness, and response. The vital role primary health care plays as a cost-effective and equitable route to achieving universal health coverage. The need to respond to the adverse impact of climate change on health and to strengthen health systems and aid adaptation, and the recognition of antimicrobial resistance as a pressing global risk and the need to reinforce global commitments to combating this growing global crisis and health threat through a One Health approach. In this regard, we look forward to discussing further at the high-level meeting on AMR in September. The United Kingdom is committed to these objectives and is already making great progress with our global partners to address these global health issues. However, our delegation regrets that a divergence of views on several issues and the process of the negotiations has prevented reaching complete consensus on this resolution. In particular, the UK wishes to highlight the following. On paragraph OP22, the UK has consistently raised its concerns about the inclusion of the phrase unhindered access throughout negotiations, as well as in other international fora. The UK has long been a supporter of better and more affordable access to medicines in low and middle income countries, including through UK funding for organizations such as UNITAID, the Access to Medicines Foundation, the Global Fund, amongst others, and we will continue to do so. However, for the reasons already noted throughout the negotiation process, the UK voted against this paragraph and would like to dissociate from OP22. With respect to paragraphs PP29, PP47, OP4, OP6, OP7, and OP31, we maintain that the inclusion of involuntary and mutually agreed terms is essential when referring to technology and knowledge transfer. It is imperative that such transfers be on voluntary and mutually agreed terms in order to maximize the chances of successful and long-lasting technology transfer taking place as set out in international agreements and reducing the possibility of unequal and unfavorable terms so that they are mutually beneficial to all parties, including those from low and middle income countries. We are particularly concerned with the omission of the reference to voluntary and mutually agreed terms in PP29, and for this reason, we voted against this paragraph and would like to disassociate from PP29. On sexual and reproductive health rights, we fully align ourselves with the statement made by the delegation of the United States. The United Kingdom is, however, fully committed to the overarching objective of the resolution, and despite these concerns, joins consensus on the text. Once again, President, Excellencies, my delegation would like to thank the Foreign Policy and Global Health Core Group for their efforts in keeping political attention on our important global health agenda as an integral part of our foreign and development policy. We request for this statement to be placed on the record. I thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of the United Kingdom for his statement, and I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of the Russian Federation.
Уважаемый господин председатель, хотели бы поблагодарить делегацию ЮАР как координатора переговорного процесса по резолюции о тесной взаимосвязи между внешней политикой и здоровьем населения мира, имеющим немаловажное значение и для нашей делегации. Положительно оцениваем ее работу и присоединяемся к консенсусу. Выступаем за сохранение в центре внимания данного документа темы здравоохранения без излишнего смещения акцентов на смежные вопросы, в том числе правозащитные, для которых в ООН есть специально отведенные для этого площадки. Вопросы здравоохранения не должны политизироваться в угоду интересам отдельных стран, ставя под угрозу благополучие населения всего мира. Для нас гораздо важнее, чтобы решались вопросы по обеспечению экономической эффективности, доступности и ценовой приемлемости медицинского обслуживания для простых граждан. Что касается внесенной Украиной поправки о ссылке на вызовы здравоохранения в условиях вооруженных конфликтов, особенно на оккупированных территориях, мы поддержим те делегации, который обозначит нацеленность этого параграфа на страдающих в Газе. Не считаем данный параграф антироссийским, особенно с учетом того, что на территории Крыма и Донбасса прошли референдумы, и об их оккупированном статусе говорят только делегации, которые боятся признать новую реальность. В резолюции по глобальному здоровью и внешней политике содержатся формулировки, которые, тем не менее, являются для нас проблемными. По этой причине мы просим зафиксировать в протоколе заседания, что Россия дистанцируется от консенсуса по пунктам 29 и 49 сугубо по тематике матричных РНК-вакцин. Сегодня продолжают поступать официальные заключения о том, что МРНК-вакцины способны влиять на развитие неврологических, кровеносных и сердечно-сосудистых осложнений. И это вполне ожидаемо, поскольку проведенных исследований по их использованию все еще недостаточно, чтобы установить достоверную взаимосвязь между МРНК-вакцинами и негативными последствиями для здоровья привитых пациентов. То же самое касается и параграфа, связанного с Фондом по борьбе с пандемиями, имея в виду диссоциирование от параграфов преамбулярного 39 и оперативного параграфа 12. На наш взгляд, Генассамблея преждевременно приветствует настолько непрозрачную структуру, убеждены в том, что подобные оценки и решения должны приниматься на Всемирной ассамблее здравоохранения, которая будет обсуждать пандемийную архитектуру реагирования и, в частности, пандемийный инструмент уже в этом мае. Также вынуждены диссоциироваться от пунктов 15, 20 и 30 преамбулярной части резолюции. Мы не можем рассматривать их в качестве согласованных параграфов в связи с упоминанием в них тех, кто относится к уязвимым группам и так называемым маргинализированным слоям населения. Свою позицию по данным терминам подробно излагали во многих документах Третьего комитета. Считаем, что у каждого человека действительно должны быть равные возможности в плане доступа к услугам здравоохранения, особенно у женщин и детей, в силу наличия у них особых нужд и потребностей. Это применимо и в отношении людей, попавших в тяжелую жизненную ситуацию. Однако рассматриваем включение вышеупомянутой терминологии в качестве очередной попытки продвижения тематики сексуальных меньшинств. Такие заходы являются для нас неприемлемыми и просим это учесть для будущих переговоров. Благодарю за внимание.
I thank the distinguished representative of the Russian Federation for his statement. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Japan.
Mr. President, I deliver this statement on behalf of the United States, Israel, and my own country, Japan. We would like to welcome the adoption of the resolution on global health and foreign policy today. We also extend our deep appreciation to the co-facilitators, South Africa, and the core groups for their dedicated efforts for this resolution. And we find ourselves at a pivotal juncture in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. The lessons we have learned must not be forgotten. It is incumbent upon the international community to rekindle the spirit of our collective goal, to leave no one's health behind and to prepare for the next pandemic. Our journey towards universal health coverage has been fraught with difficulties. The challenges have become increasingly complex, with divisions surfacing within the international community. It is during these challenging moment that we must return to the core of our mission, encapsulated in a simple yet profound principle of leave no one behind. We must illuminate the path forward with the beacon of human dignity, ensuring that our commitment to these principles remains steadfast. Yet, in our pursuit of consensus, we acknowledge that challenges emerged during the negotiation, particularly concerning specific policy issues such as technology transfer. We underscore the importance of addressing these issues in the forums and institutions specifically mandated for such discussion in line with their respective governance frameworks. Therefore, we dissociate from uncaveated references to technology transfer in paragraphs PP29 and OP6. We confirm that the United Nations does not support the coerced or unlawful transfer of technology, aiming to uphold a delicate equilibrium between accessibility and innovation. Mr. President, today's adoption of the Global Health and Foreign Policy Resolution marks our milestone in our journey towards the 2030 Agenda. We must continue to redouble our efforts in pursuit of the SDGs, leaving no one behind. In closing, let us remember that our work is far from over. The challenges ahead may be formidable, but our dedication to the principles of solidarity and cooperation will guide us toward a future where all people can access the quality health care they deserve. I thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Japan for his statement. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of New Zealand.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have the honour of delivering this statement on behalf of Canada, Australia, and my own country, New Zealand, together as CANS. We are grateful to the core group for their dedication to keeping this issue on the agenda in New York, where political will can drive action and momentum. We appreciate the hard work of the core group and understand the challenges they faced in managing such a broad resolution. While CANS supports the overall agenda, we believe that this resolution fell short in a few areas and could be improved. First, we have concerns regarding the term unhindered in operative paragraph 22, which we understand to refer to autonomous sanctions. Throughout the process, CANS, along with others, advocated for its removal due to its divisive nature. We maintain that such language does not contribute positively to this resolution. Sanctions target egregious conduct that is contrary to international norms and the rule-based order, and they contain carefully crafted provisions to protect local populations. We continue to strongly oppose this language in discussions in Geneva. We regret that the facilitator chose to include this language in this resolution. Second, we appreciate the inclusion of a paragraph on sexual and reproductive health and reproductive rights, which is a high priority for our delegations. However, we are disappointed that the facilitator did not include operative paragraph 13 from Resolution 75/130, which is a previous iteration of this very resolution. That paragraph was strong, action-oriented, and the result of extensive negotiations. It was previously agreed in this exact context. It is troubling that the facilitator chose to amend it at the last minute. Third, we would have preferred that the paragraph on menstrual health from the recently adopted WASH resolution was included in this resolution as well. Finally, we consider that the process had room for improvement. While CANS engaged constructively and in good faith throughout, our highest priority issues were not given equal consideration or incorporated into the resolution. We believe that a collaborative and inclusive approach is necessary to achieve meaningful progress on the issues at hand. CANS was pleased to engage positively, and we thank other delegations for their cooperation. We also extend our gratitude to the facilitator and the entire core group for their efforts. We look forward to making progress on this issue in the future. Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of New Zealand for his statement, and I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Egypt.
شكرا سيد الرئيس. ترحب مصر باعتماد القرار المعنون الصحة العالمية والسياسة الخارجية وبالرسالة التي يعكسها ذلك من حاجة ملحة لمواصلة الجهود الدولية لسد الفجوات القائمة في الهيكل الصحي العالمي ولتحقيق الهدف الثالث من أهداف التنمية المستدامة. ويشكر وفد مصر مجموعة النواة المقدمة لمشروع القرار على جهودها في تيسير المشاورات حوله. سيد الرئيس، يأسف وفد مصر لقيام بعض الوفود بطرح تعديلين على النص المعتمد والواردتين بالوثيقتين L64 و L65 من أجل تقويض اللغات الخاصة بنقل التكنولوجيا الصحية ونفاذ الجميع للأدوية واللقاحات وأدوات التشخيص وغيرها من المنتجات الصحية. وقد صوتت مصر ضد هذين التعديلين إيمانا منها بضرورة تكاتف الجهود الدولية بصورة جادة لضمان حصول كل إنسان في كل دولة وفي كل قارة على الحق في تلقي أعلى مستوى من الرعاية الصحية، خاصة في أعقاب ما أظهرته جائحة فيروس كورونا من فجوات في الهيكل الصحي العالمي وانعدام المساواة الواضح بين مختلف النظم الصحية. السيد الرئيس، هدف التعديلان لحذف الإشارة المطالبة بأن يكون النفاذ للأدوية واللقاحات غير معرقل، ويظل التساؤل كيف لنا أن نجتمع اليوم إلا ولأن نجدد التزامنا برفع كافة العقبات أمام وصول التكنولوجيا الصحية للجميع حول العالم وعلى أساس من المساواة وعدم التمييز، وتأكيدا لشعارنا الأممي بعدم ترك أحد خلف الركب. كيف يمكن وبعد أن عقدت الجمعية العامة 3 اجتماعات رفيعة المستوى في سبتمبر الماضي وأقرت بوجود فجوات حقيقية بين النظم الصحية أن نجتمع اليوم دون الالتزام بتحسين آليات توفير الأدوية واللقاحات من أجل تعزيز الوقاية والتأهب والاستجابة للجوائح المقبلة والاستفادة من دروس جائحة فيروس كورونا؟ السيد الرئيس، يؤكد العهد الدولي للحقوق الاقتصادية والاجتماعية والثقافية أحقية الجميع في الاستفادة من فوائد التقدم العلمي وتطبيقاته، ولعل التعهد بمشاركة فوائد التأقد العلمي في مجال الصحة لا يراعي فقط هذا الحق، بل وإنما يمثل التزاماً إنسانياً بضمان سلامة الجميع على أساس من التضامن. وتؤكد مصر محورية مبادئ الإنصاف والمساواة والتضامن والتعاون الدوليين في إطار الجهود الدولية الرامية لتحقيق الهدف الثالث من أهداف التنمية المستدامة، وتظل مصر ملتزمة بمشاركة المجتمع الدولي جهوده في هذا الإطار. ختاماً، يثني وفد مصر على البعد الذي يضيفه التعديل الثالث بإضافة الفقرة الديباجية 30 المكررة، حيث يسلط الضوء على ما تتعرض له الشعوب الواقعة تحت الاحتلال من تقويض في حقهم في الرعاية الصحية، ولعله يسلط الضوء بوضوح على الانتهاكات اليومية التي يتعرض له الشعب الفلسطيني مع استمرار احتلال أراضيه ومواصلة إسرائيل عدوانها الغاشم على قطاع غزة واستهدافها المنشآت الطبية والعاملين في المجال الطبي والإنساني، مما أدى لاستشهاد أكثر من 34,000 من المدنيين الفلسطينيين. وهو ما يدفعنا مجددا اليوم وهنا في الجمعية العامة للدعوة لتحقيق وقف فوري وشامل لإطلاق النار في قطاع غزة وستواصل مصر اتصالاتها ومساعيها الحثيثة من أجل تحقيق ذلك. وشكرا السيد الرئيس.
I thank the distinguished representative of Egypt for his statement, and I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Malaysia.
Thank you, Mr. President. Malaysia takes the floor to deliver an explanation of vote on resolution entitled Global Health and Foreign Policy, addressing global health challenges in the foreign policy space, and the draft amendments presented today. Malaysia believes that the resolution presented by the core group is relatively balanced and that its contents are reflective of our common objectives. As such, we are disappointed that several amendments were presented to the resolution, which would have upset the balance struck through a process that we believe is comprehensive and exhaustive. We also regret that the corresponding paragraphs in the resolution were put to vote. The draft amendments in documents L.64 and L.65 deviate from the spirit of cooperation, which in turn jeopardize the common interests of our peoples, especially those of developing countries. Malaysia believes that multi-sectoral and multi-stakeholder cooperation is important, especially towards achieving equity in the field of health, and must not be subjected to undue limitations and constraints. It is for this reason that Malaysia voted against the said amendments. Mr. President, while we understand that the principal goal of every nation's foreign policy is to uphold national security and interests, Malaysia is convinced that foreign policy and international relations must also be guided by the values of global solidarity, humanity, and cooperation. Recognizing the importance of this process, Malaysia has joined consensus on the resolution. We sincerely hope that member states can engage and work together in our collective efforts to respond to global health challenges and its devastating impact. I thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Malaysia for her statement, and I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Israel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Israel would like to thank the facilitators, the World Health Organization, and the core group of Global Health and Foreign Policy for their work. Mr. President, we have comments on several elements in the text. Concerning preambular paragraph 29, we disassociate from this paragraph and align ourselves with the statement made by the representative of Japan. We reiterate Israel's consistent position voiced in various fora that technology transfer reflected in the text and actually taking place must occur in the context of voluntary and mutually agreed terms, and any text must reflect this principle explicitly. Adhering to this principle actually enables technology transfer, and the insertion of such formulation in the text should enjoy the support of many member states. Here is evident in many UN resolutions where we had consensus on this. With regard to operative paragraph 22, we disassociate from this paragraph after failing to accept the amendment proposed by the Swiss delegation, as we do not believe we should prejudge outcome of ongoing negotiations in Geneva. Finally, concerning operative paragraph 23 and SRHR language, we align ourselves and join the statement made by the representative of the United States of America. Mr. President, this resolution is also relevant in the context of my country. Hamas builds up capabilities within and underneath hospitals, UN facilities, schools, and civilian infrastructures. And by doing so, they commit a double war crime, shooting rockets at Israeli civilians population from within Palestinian civilian population. Israel is operating to depose the Hamas regime, remove the terrorist threat posed to Israel from the Gaza Strip, and act to return all hostages. We call for the immediate and unconditional release of all hostages with no exception. We will achieve these goals in compliance with international law. Israel works to limit the damage caused to civilian population and attacks only legitimate military targets, and is permitting the passage of humanitarian supplies for the civilian population in Gaza. Mr. President, when it comes to global health and foreign policy, there is no clearer threat than the genocidal actions of murderous terrorists like Hamas. I would note that the Palestinian Authority has failed to condemn the horrendous 7th of October attacks on Israeli civilians to this day. Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Israel for his statement, and I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Uganda.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I take the floor in the capacity of Chair of G77 and China. The G77 and China obviously welcomes the adoption of their policy and global health resolution, which was extensively negotiated. It is our firm belief that the process was comprehensive and exhaustive to reach a balanced text. In this regard, we wish to thank members of the group for supporting the global goal of an improved health cooperation within the global system. The other amendments, if adopted, would have fundamentally altered the balanced text and act against the broader interests of humanity, particularly the developing countries. I thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Uganda for his statement, and I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of the Syrian Arab Republic.
شكرا السيد الرئيس. يرحب وفدي باعتماد القرار بتوافق الآراء، ويتوجه بالشكر لوفد جنوب أفريقيا على قيادتهم الناجحة الذي أفضت لذلك. إن التعديلات التي قدمت، وأقص التعديلين الأولين، تقوض التعاون الدولي في مجال الصحة في الوقت الذي نحن فيه بأمس الحاجة لنقل التكنولوجيا وتسهيل الوصول للقاحات والأدوات الطبية، ولذلك صوت وفدي ضد هذه التعديلات. ونؤكد أن الإجراءات القسرية الأحادية الجانب غير قانونية وغير إنسانية، وتعيق حقوق الإنسان بما في ذلك الحق في الصحة. ونرى أن التعديل الثالث يسلط الضوء على ما تعاني منه الشعوب الرازحة تحت الاحتلال، بما في ذلك الشعب السوري في الجولان السوري المحتل والشعب الفلسطيني في فلسطين المحتلة. وينأى وفدي بنفسه عن اللغات الخلافية الموجودة في النص، ويحتفظ بحق تفسير اللغات المتعلقة بالصحة الإنسانية والإنجابية بما يتوافق مع التشريعات والقوانين الوطنية. شكرا السيد الرئيس.
I thank the distinguished representative of the Syrian Arab Republic for his statement. Excellencies, we have heard the last speaker in explanation of vote after the vote. The General Assembly has thus concluded the stage of its consideration of Agenda Item 125. Before adjourning this meeting, members are informed that the remaining speakers under Agenda Item 63, entitled Use of the Veto, concerning the admission of new members, will be heard on Monday, 6th May in the afternoon, after the item already announced in the journal. The meeting is adjourned.